for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. The Eye Test with Pierre McGuire and Jimmy Murphy.
The Stanley Cup winning Colorado Avalanche And after 22 years, Raymond Mark!
The sickest NHL podcast. It's gonna be sick.
And welcome to another edition of the Eye Test here in the Sick Podcast Network. He is Pierre McGuire. I'm Jimmy Murphy. Pierre, we've got another great show in line here. Great guest coming on, as always. Mark Recchi, Hall of Famer, will join us shortly here on the Eye Test. Looking forward to talking to Rex. I remember the night he retired. You were there on the ice with him when that happened, right after they won the Bruins won the Stanley Cup in 2011. And speaking of retirements, Pierre, a good friend of ours and a great player, had a wonderful career, started off at BU and on through the NHL with 7 teams. Kevin Shattenkirk will hopefully join us tomorrow. We're working on that. We'll see what we can do. We're going to try and get him on as a guest. He announced his retirement today. Pierre, before we go on and get into the news of the day, just your thoughts on Kevin Shattenkirk's career.
I think he's the only person ever born in the city of New Rochelle, New York, that made the National Hockey League and played for a significant amount of time. Huge fan of the person, tremendous fan of the player. He was great. What I remember, his first real coming out party to me was the 09 World Junior in Ottawa. And he was on the same team with Ryan McDonough, an American team that got out coached by Pat Quinn and Team Canada. The Americans had a 3-0 lead, and Quinn and Guy Boucher did a masterful job reeling the game in, and Kevin was part of that U.S. team that went down. But what was so honorable about Kevin is how he dealt with his teammates, whether he was in Colorado, whether he was in St. Louis, whether he's in Washington, whether he's in New York, whether he's in Tampa, whether he's in Anaheim, and at the end in Boston. He was always a great teammate. But what stood out to me the most was how he dealt with the media. He was up front. He always looked you in the eye. He was a gentleman. He never shied away from an interview. He handled himself with a lot of dignity. Big fan of him, big fan of the player, even bigger fan of the person. Really, really good person.
I'm with you on that. I got obviously to cover him a little there at the tail end there last year when he's with the Bruins, Pierre. And one thing I noticed right away was he seemed like he had been part of that locker room, part of that dressing room for years. Like he just all of a sudden he was there and he was part of the fabric of it. And that, goes to what you're saying there about the person and how he was able to assimilate into a dressing room. And, like you said, just full of class and always willing to talk to the reporters and just always loved to talk, even, if the microphones went on, just always loved to talk about the game. He gives some great.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, that's what stood out to me about him was, when you're doing national broadcasts, you're around these guys a lot, and there's a lot of pressure in those games in particular, because a lot of times you're the only game in town, so a lot of eyeballs on you, and it never bothered him. He was always just calm. He was cool. He was collected. He never, tried to embarrass a teammate. I just always liked him. Now, I think he came by it honestly. As a kid that was a really good player at the Brunswick School, which is just outside of Greenwich, Connecticut. He goes to the U.S. National Team Development Program. I think at that time that program was kind of just getting going. It was just starting to evolve to where it is now, which is super elite. And so he went through a lot, but I think that it made him a better hockey guy and it made him a real good person.
Yeah, and he ended up being a key part of that Cup team in Tampa Bay there too, as well. So
the 2020 Cup team he was part of, and then obviously moved on. But he was a big part of that. That was an interesting Stanley Cup because it was. They started. People forget Tampa started in Toronto. I was in Edmonton the whole time, so I was there 2.5 months with Kenny Albert. But those guys, Tampa and the Islanders, who came west, they started in Toronto. I know it's 4 years ago, but it seems like it was 50 years ago. But that was a tough cut. People say, "Oh, there should be an asterisk on it because of the COVID." Think about what those guys did. They spent a month and a bit in Toronto playing games. Then they got on a plane, came all the way across the country, and they spent another 2.5 weeks, I think, or 2 weeks in Edmonton. Trust me, it was different.
Yeah. It was especially really for veterans like that too. They have kids and you're away from your family, and as you experience yourself what that's like. I mean, you were literally in a bubble. It was, Well, I don't want to just prison is a strong word, but it was like you guys were held hostage that you couldn't go out. That was it.
No. I'm just going to make it a personal thing, and I don't want anybody to feel sorry for me because none of us did. But my wife drove our son across the country because he was playing junior in Penticton, British Columbia. And from the time I left my son at the end of July to the time I saw him again, it was a year later in June. Think about that. So the only time I ever saw him was on TV playing for Penticton and Freddie Harbinson. I didn't see him for a year.
Wow.
And that's just I'm one little minuscule example of what went on during that COVID time. If you were in a hockey family, it was a really different time. It really was.
It was, for sure. Well, fast forward to now, Pierre. You were watching firsthand. You did the post game with Tony Marinaro here on the Sick Podcast Network last night. The Canadiens get a nice shootout win over the Anaheim Ducks. But the biggest thing to me was the monkey is off the back of Kirby Dach. And I don't care how he scored it. People saying, it was kind of an easy goal. It was doesn't matter how you score it. You score it. And for him, that's a big relief. As you were saying, I heard you on with Mitch Melnick before the game last night. Look, it's getting to the point where they might have to move him down the lineup. They've given him enough chances, but he went out there, he got it. What does he have to do now to carry that momentum going forward?
You know what I thought was really impressive near the end of the game when they're battling to stay in it to just force overtime? They have him on the ice. Marty St. Louis has him on the ice playing in more of a defensive role than an offensive role. And I thought he handled it well. He's got to get his feet moving still. He's still got to utilize his size to make himself a difference maker. At some point, I think they're just going to say, okay, let's get him more comfortable. It's an easier game to play in the wing than it is at center, especially if you're not moving very well and he's not moving great. I could see a situation where Patrick Laine in Montreal would move up and play with Caulfield and Suzuki. I could see where Newhook would leave the right side and go back to center. And I could see where they would have Slafkovsky stay on the left side and maybe Dach on the right side and give Newhook a little bit of size to play with. It gives those two guys, the big wingers, a little bit of speed through the middle. And I could see maybe eventually where they do something like that if Kirby can't get going. But I see what the coach is doing with them, and I think a lot of people do. They're trying to give them every opportunity to survive, and which is good, which is really good.
Yeah. And just furthermore, we'll move on to some other games, but just on that game as well, Laine scores again. Pierre, he's becoming one of the feel-good stories around the league right now. But when you have a guy like that, after what he's been through, he comes in, he has instant success, the team is feeling it. What's it like when you have sort of a feel-good story like that in the dressing room? How do you feed off it?
I think they're doing a good job just with the interviews, what the guys are saying. It's really impressive to see what Lane Hudson says. Boy, it's such a pleasure to get him the puck, to see what he can do when he gets it. I think the guys are reveling in the fact that they know they have an instantaneous game breaker. Guys like that. Players like guys that can elevate the aura around the team, around the building. And I think Patrick's done that. And, you talked about it a lot with me when we went to Ireland. And you were right on, to do what he's done, to go through what he's done, to face some of the demons he's had to face and get through it and really never lose his self-esteem, at least publicly. I think that says a lot about his character. And, Jimmy, I've told you a million times, coachability and character, two of the most overlooked things when it comes to hockey players.
Oh, for sure. For sure. So good story going on there in Montreal. Pierre, but let's get to the ugly situations last night. And look, I don't know, there's some teams, we've been saying it, we continue to say it. When will the shoe drop? We're looking at the Buffalo Sabres and the New York Rangers right now. The Rangers fall 2-1 in the Chicago Blackhawks last night at MSG. They leave the rink to a shower of booze, and the Sabres blow another one and lose in a shootout to the Red Wings. It's just, at what point does something happen here, Pierre? It's like, I said to you off the air, it's like these guys are just waiting. They're almost paralyzed right now. They're waiting for something to happen instead of just focusing on the game and playing the game. They're just distracted by that. Like, okay, what's happening? When is this going to happen? Who's going to go? What will the change be? When is it going to happen with these two teams right now, Pierre?
They're playing each other tomorrow in Buffalo.
What do we call that game? You got a nickname for that one? Survival Bowl. Okay, I like it.
They're playing each other tomorrow in Buffalo. I'm not kidding you.
Yeah. So that's going to be interesting.
That'll be very interesting. I'm perplexed because I'm a big Peter Laviolette fan, and I think the world of his staff, Danny Muse, Michael Pekka, Phil Housley. I think the world of that staff. I really do. They look almost fatigued. We're at game 30. It's not like we're at game 50. We're at game 30.
I know.
They look worn out. And I just think it's because of all the things that have happened away from the bench, that have happened away from the practice facility, that actually happened in the dressing room. That's where the biggest – and it's not because of the players that are there. This whole thing started in the summer. Jimmy?
Yeah.
Jimmy, you can tell the new listeners what was said on this show. And he's not going to like me for saying this, and it's going to bother me a bit because I don't have any axe to grind with Chris Drury, but that was a major, major mistake. What they did this summer. Was really a mistake.
And not fixing it in the summer before the season started. That was the key.
It was really a bad mistake. It was said there was no money. This is not Monday Morning Quarterback, and what was said. Yeah. We said it right away. They said they better be able to trade this guy, because if not, they're going to have a big problem.
Yeah, because it's just going to be like the elephant in the room, like we said.
And it's what happened. I just feel badly. I don't like to see it. Look, you know what? Trouba was a gentleman last night. He handled himself great. Yeah. And I was shocked. Pardon me?
He played well, too, I thought.
You're darn right he did.
Let him in minutes. I mean, he was great.
No, I agree with it. But, Jimmy, you know what's interesting? They put all these resources into the TV broadcast. I didn't see one person show the last time he played in Montreal what he did to one of the Montreal Canadian players, Justin Barron. He knocked him out cold. That's right. Never once brought up on the broadcast. Never once.
Wow.
And that's a major story. Because you know what happened in that game? Because it shows the difference. Mike Matheson, who's not a fighter, went and fought Jacob Trouba, which takes a lot of courage because Trouba's a tough guy. He's a tough guy.
Yep.
You didn't see anybody fighting for Trouba in New York.
Yeah. I know.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't know what happened there. I hope for everybody's sake that it just moves on. And I hope for Jacob, anyways, you can go and have some fun playing hockey in Anaheim. They play in Ottawa tomorrow. It was kind of cool. They took the train last night.
I was just going to say that. I loved it. Yeah, that's great.
That was so good.
More teams should do that if they have the ability to.
When I worked in Ottawa, we did that. We used to do that. We take the train to Montreal.
You mean recently?
Yeah. We would take the train to Montreal. It was really good. It was a lot of fun. Yeah. I thought it was great.
It's a team, and I don't know. It's a good distraction when during the season.
But I hope for Jacob it continues to evolve like it did last night. I thought he played a good game. The kid I'll tell you what, Jimmy. You know I'm a big fan of Cutter Gauthier, and you can see he's really starting to take it now. He's starting to run with it a little bit, which is great. But the guy that's good there, watch out for this guy. If you're a fan of young defensemen, Zellweger is good. Oh boy, is this guy good. Yep. He is a gunslinger. He is not intimidated by any moment. He's running an efficient power play. This is a special player. He's not big. Is he better than Lane Hudson? No, he's not. But he's in the same kind of discussion. Yeah.
A lot of people are wondering. I mean, you have fans, some media speculating, would something happen with Drury based on what's been going on? But I look at it here. I don't know. Like, I don't see a change happening there, because I would imagine to do what he's done, he had to have ownership's blessing. I don't know that for a fact, but I'm just guessing. I mean, if he's able to pull off bold moves like that, he's got to run it by ownership. So if they're behind him, he's not going to be the change. So that leaves you to wonder, what will be the change? And I just look at it and I say, look, obviously the coaching thing is the easiest thing to do. And unfortunately it happens way too much, but this move with Trouba also shows that maybe Drury's looking at the other alternative. He wants the roster. And I think maybe another change could be coming on that roster. I don't know who, I don't know what, but if something big is going to drop again, I got a feeling it might be on the roster.
Well,
that's just me hypothesizing.
the first thing they wanted to do is open up enough space so they could get the goaltender Shattenkirk signed, and which they were able to do at $11.5 million a year on an 8-year deal with no signing bonuses or anything. It's just straight salary. So they were able to do that. Now they've got cap room to play with this year. So I think your hypothesis has probably got some merit. I really do, Jimmy. I could see where they do start to play with their roster. They need a lot, Jimmy. You know, I told you this today when we were talking before we came on the show. I'm not seeing enough improvement. One of the keys now, because of the cap and the amount of young players being rushed into the league, and this is happening in Buffalo too, by the way, young players have to continue to evolve and play better over the course of the year. Buffalo, their younger guys haven't done that, and that's part of why they're in this predicament. And I would say the same thing in New York. Outside of Filipino, who I think has been great, and I don't consider Lafreniere a young player anymore. He's a first overall pick. He should be a dominant power forward. He's starting to evolve into that, which is great. He's not part of the problem in New York. I think he's part of the solution. But Braden Schneider needs to be better there. Keandre Miller needs to be better there. You know what I think of Adam Fox. He's a tremendous player. He hasn't had a great year so far. So internally, some guys need to get better, both in New York and in Buffalo, both places.
Yeah. Brawl? You got me, Pierre?
You are freezing up because you're something wrong with your Wi-Fi, my man.
Are we back?
You're back.
There we go.
You're back.
All right. What I was asking was, you know, with these young guys regressing, is that more a result of just the atmosphere, you think, of what's going on with the team as a whole?
Could be. I think there's a fatigue. Well, with the Rangers, I can't speak to Buffalo because they don't have the same scrutiny, you know, with the media in New York or in Buffalo as they have in New York. But the expectation level in New York was much higher than it is in Buffalo. But I'd just say there's like a fatigue factor. You see it, and they'll probably deny it, which is great. They should. But when you watch them on TV, and I watch every one of their games, they don't look like they have the same energy as they had, you know, 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago even. They look worn out. They look fatigued. And, you know, we talked about the Trouba stuff in the summer. Whomever decided to send out that letter, whether it was Chris Drury, whether it was him following ownership orders, whomever it was, when they sent out the letter saying, oh, by the way, we're open for business, and that got out there publicly, all of a sudden the team just the energy was right out of the group. And you can see it. You can see it.
Yeah. And another thing I want to say, I'm not going to name the people, but there's also some people blaming Shesterkin, really getting on him, and just because of the money he's making and saying, you know, he's partly to blame for what's going on here. Goaltending has not been the issue. If anything, that's been the one positive, both him and Quick to me. And I hate when, you know, players get simply judged on a contract or on a salary, on a cap hit. But that's not the issue, Pierre. If anything, that's the one thing that's kept them afloat. I think they're out of the playoffs, if not for their goalies right now. Well,
they're basically out of the playoffs now. They're fighting to stay in the
right. I mean, out of the playoffs.
Goaltending has helped them a lot. Yes, I would cede you that. Yes, it has. The one thing I'd say though is Shesterkin doesn't get paid till next year. I do think it's a little bit like the Swayman situation. When you have these prolonged negotiations and they become public, it does have an effect internally. People can deny it, but it does. It really does.
Yeah, I hear you on that. One more thing. We're trying to get Mark Recchi right now. Just shot him a text. Hopefully we'll be connecting with him soon. But one more thing I want to talk about is Nashville. They host Calgary tonight. They have not won a game since November 23rd. They're another one. Like, when is the shoe going to drop here? And you continue to hear it could be Brunette. And, you know, you and I were talking, kind of looking at the roster. What could Barry Trotz do with this roster? And as we established via one of your wonderful exercises you do with me, it's a very disjointed roster, Pierre.
Yeah, I mean, it starts with depth down the middle. And when you don't have Ryan O'Reilly, your depth down the middle shrinks exponentially. And our next guest will be able to tell you that. Mark wasn't a centerman. He was an elite winger, and he's a left shot that usually played on the right side. He could play any of the 3 forward positions, but he could tell you if you're remiss about having depth down the middle, it's a hard game to play. I'll just use Washington Capitals as an example. Minnesota and Washington are the 2 stories of teams that nobody expected to be at the top of the food chain at this time of the year. They thought they'd both be struggling to be relevant for a playoff position. So let's just do Washington. You look at, their center ice play. Strom's done really well. Dubois done really well. And then you look, I think they've got the best. I really do. I think they've got the best 4th line center in the NHL.
Yeah.
I really do.
Yeah, there's a guy that a lot of people were coveting at the trade deadline, and they're thankful they held on to him right now.
Yeah, so I mean, depth down the middle matters. It matters a lot. And I want to hear what Mark has to say about that, because I think that's part of what's ailing Nashville.
Well, let's go to our guest right now. Hall of Famer Mark Recchi joining us right now. Rex, how you doing, my friend?
Great, guys. How you doing?
Good. Good to see you.
You're doing great. I love your haircut.
Yeah. Good job, Gary.
So Rex was talking about just being deep down the middle, and as Pierre said, Washington really has solidified that position. What's been your thoughts on their start to the season?
Yeah, well, it's been really good, and I think that young coach gets a lot out of them too. Like I thought last year, they overexceeded what I felt they had as a team, but they did a heck of a job, and but then they add that the size down the middle too. Like they're all pretty big, so they're big. They can all play, and it like you guys were talking about, it makes a big difference when you're deep down the middle, and that's the important key. I mean, you look at every team that wins the Stanley Cup. You look how deep they are up the middle, and there's no, it's pretty easy to understand.
Hey, Mark, were you surprised that Pittsburgh allowed Lars Eller to go to Washington?
Oh yeah, I mean, he actually got off to a great start as well. I mean, he was one of the best start of the year. Every night, and I'm obviously they're caught in the middle. Maybe they're trying to change things up, shuffle things up, but he's a pretty good 3rd line center for him, and and again, that's they added Washington adds him, and they've got they've got Dowd, the big righty Dowd. I mean, he's a heck of he's a real solid 4th line guy, penalty killer that takes a lot of the big draws in their D zone.
Yeah, that's what I was just saying to Jimmy. Nick Dowd's the best 4th line center in the National Hockey League, and I thought last year when it looks like they weren't going to make the playoffs, he was going to be a prime player at the trade deadline. But it's a good thing for them they held on to him, because he's had an amazing start to the year.
Yeah, absolutely. He's just a guy is going to be there every night for you. So when you have those guys, and especially when he's under real in today's term, like friendly contract as well. I mean, you got to keep those guys around.
What about the way, Mark, that they've done it? I think, in my opinion, a good way of, everyone's looking at them saying they're in a rebuild, but they did more of the reset, so to speak, and sort of blending the veterans and their youth coming into the system. What's been your take on their ability to do that?
Oh yeah, that's exactly what you see, and they're a team that's just been they play well as a team. They play they play the right way. They play hard. They buy into what the coach there has brought in, and they've been good. And like you said, they did they retooled a little bit, and they blended in McMichael. I think it's McMichael, right? The young guy.
You got it. Yep.
He's he's just gotten better and better, and he just took off this year. And he's slowed down a little bit, but he got off to a great start, and that's blending that youth in with that, with bringing some guys like that it just keeps the development and keeps the growth of the team going.
Jimmy, you know what I think is cool? Mark probably watches as many or more games than any general manager in the league, and so his opinions matter. I cherish his opinions. Tell me what you're thinking, because you played in Montreal, of where Lane Hudson's game is right now, Mark.
Yeah, I've been able to watch a few games of his, and man, I mean, it's elite. I mean, you know, he's just going to get better and better, and how he controls the game. He can, you know, he's one of those guys. He controls the tempo of the game. He plays it faster. He can slow it down, and you know, there's not very many of those guys. And you know, I mean, in the league, I mean, you look at the McGuires and the Foxes, and they can dictate the pace of the game. And you know, I played with a guy like that with Mark Howe way back in the day, but you know, when you have those guys, it's incredible. It's just, you know, and this kid's so young too. I mean, he's just going to get better and better, and he's going to develop even more. And once he gets understanding of the game every night and the schedule and you know, playing against you know, men every night, he's just going to get better and better.
Yeah.
Does he remind you of anyone you played with, Mark, over the years?
Not really. No.
No, he's pretty unique.
Yeah, he is, and you know, and he competes hard. He plays hard. He tries to do the right things. I mean, he'll learn how to defend even more and more as he grows here into this league, and he'll get better and better at that as well.
Do you have an opinion on where Montreal is with their retool, Mark?
Yeah, I think you know, I think they're doing the right things, which is the important thing. You know, I think they're, you know, they play a little loose at times is what I see. And just a lot of those grade A chances, but in terms of what they're doing, and I think they're trying to do the right things, and they're going in the right direction. And you got to stay patient when you do it. If you don't do it right, and if you try and cut corners, then you're just going to you're wavering around, and you're going to be mediocre, and you're not going to get to the point where you want to get to, and just be an elite team that's contending for the Stanley Cup. And I like the way they're doing it. I think they're being patient, which is good. You know, and I hope that the people in Montreal be patient, because they are trying to do the right things, and it's a big thing. You look at Philadelphia; they're doing the same thing. So they're, you know, they got a few teams like that in this league that, you know, they're trying to do the right way, and if they stay patient and do the right way, a couple of years they're going to be contenders, and then all of a sudden it's going to be well worth the wait. I can tell you that. And you know, it's hard to be patient though. You know, it's hard for fans, and it's hard for management. It's really hard, like, because you're getting people demand things, and you want it to get quicker too. Like, but it's so hard in this game. And if you do it right and you stay with the program, then, and what you really believe you're doing, I think it just gives you that much better of a chance.
Yeah.
All right, guys, I want to talk about another one of your former teams, the one where I was able to cover here, the Boston Bruins. And before we start, I want to go to this moment right now with you and the guy in between us there, Pierre McGuire, on the ice after you won the 2011 Stanley Cup.
91 in Pittsburgh, 06 in Carolina, 2011 in Boston.
Yeah.
How you doing?
I'm doing amazing, man. What a feeling this is. What a great group of guys. No matter what happened tonight, this is one of the best groups I've ever played with. This is a great way to go out on top for me. I've had a hell of a run, and I can't thank these guys enough for me.
What was the turning point in the series, Mark?
You know what? Game 6 was a turning point. We came out, we played a hell of a game. We knew we just needed to play one game. When we have our backs against the wall, we play our best hockey, and we did it in Game 6 and 7.
What was the difference in Game 7? Because clearly you weren't having a lot of success here. What turned it around for you in 7? Because you dominated them in 7.
Yeah, well, we got the first goal, and we knew that was going to be important coming here, and then we just kept on. You know, we just played really tight and played great defensively. If they got any chances, Timmy was there. It was scary how incredible year he had.
Can you rank the cups where this one goes?
This is my, you know, this is it for me. So they're all special, and they all mean the same to me. It's just, you know, it's kind of nice when this is the last one, you're going out on top.
We've run the trail together for a long time.
Yes, we have.
Congratulations.
Thank you, buddy.
I'm so proud of you, Mark.
91, we got it, baby.
So, you know, one of the best parts, I think, that is the end there. You know, you guys have that connection from winning the Cup in 91. And I don't know if you saw it, Mark. We had Kevin Stevens on last week, and just the bond between him and Pierre that I was able to witness there, and the connection they'll always have. You just were with all those guys in that team. What was it like going back and just reliving those memories?
It was awesome. It was a great weekend. And, you know, I've got to see, you know, a few of them over the course of the years, but to go there and spend a few days together and actually get on the ice together was really, really cool. And, you know, these guys, you know, half of them look like they could still play. So, you know, they're all still great.
Bergie.
Yeah, Bergie. Yeah. I mean, they're all in great shape. You know, it was just fun. It was so much fun being out there, and we had a great time together, and hope we do it a little bit more.
I like that. I hope so too. Maybe a glass of rouge along the way. You never know. One never knows.
You never know.
One never knows. Hey, I got to ask you about your team out in BC. It was so amazing that you win your last cup in British Columbia. You're a son of the province of British Columbia. Tell us about the Kamloops Blazers.
Yeah, it's we had the Memorial Cup a couple of years ago, so we're still in that point where we're kind of recovering from that, and we expect to be take a step this year, and we have. We're a couple games under 500, but we're going in the right direction. Next year will be a big year. We hope we can sneak into the playoffs this year, give the fans a little bit of excitement, and just to show that we're taking those steps. And then hopefully next year we just keep getting better. We got a lot of good young players. We got a couple kids that are going to be drafted this year, and so it's exciting. It's always exciting to watch the team continue to grow, and when we had the Memorial Cup, we knew we were going to have a couple tough years after that, because you kind of, you have to go for it. It's a home, it's your home, you have it at home, and you have you got to kind of sell the farm to try and win it. But, it was unfortunate we didn't, but, we're going to keep grinding away at this, and hopefully we get a chance someday to win it again.
Rex, how much do you enjoy being part of managing a team and, patching everything together, putting the pieces together? What's it like for you to have that experience?
Yeah, I love that part. It's such an exciting part, such a fun part, trying to build a team and trying to piece it together, and just the whole nuance with everything, like, from drafting to, free agents to, to making sure you have the right pieces that to fill the spots. And, I love it. And it's been a passion of mine. And, I was involved, and then, I jumped into coaching for a few years, but, I really, enjoyed both of them, but the building part's what I really, really like.
Yeah, and that's why he's good at it, because he knows what it takes to win. What he accomplished, there are not a lot of guys that win one cup. He won 3, and he did it in 3 different situations. The last one, I think, is the most amazing one to me, because a lot of people doubted whether Mark could do it or not, and I think he knows that, and he wanted to prove a lot of people wrong. And I will never forget the night before that Game 7, you and I had a little chance to have a meeting at the Pan Pacific Hotel, and you told me, I'll never forget it. I tell people the story all the time. You said, we're going to win. We're going to win. I can tell you right now, we're going to win. And you knew it. And I found that amazing, and I will never forget that night. I'll never forget it.
Yeah, well, we've been through everything as a group, and we just really, I really believed in that I knew that we would show up, and we'd be the team that that we had been all year. That was our 3rd Game 7 in the playoffs, and we've thrived in every one. We played our best games in every one, and I just knew that group was going to be there, and we just needed one game. That's it. And then when Bergie scored that first goal, and then we got a shorthanded goal after, and it's like, okay, let's just keep the pedal to the metal here, or metal to the pedal, I guess. So and
Rex, before we let you go, you bring up Bergie there. Brad Marchand is still playing. He was there on the ice. I guess he was the unofficial coach the other night. What's it like for you to see him still playing right now after all you went through with him?
It's awesome to see him still playing, and he's got that competitive fire every night. He leads that team. He's a great leader. He's turned into a terrific leader. He brings that passion to the rink every day, and we had a blast with him on the bench, and he came. It was so great. He hung out with us. He stayed till late after. It was awesome. That's just the type of person he is, and we had a lot of fun with him. He was chirping on the bench. It was pretty good.
I heard he was riding. That was pretty good.
He could never have had 3 better mentors than Recchi, Char, and Bergeron. He never could have had 3 better mentors.
Yeah, but if you don't listen, it don't matter. So he's willing to get better. Wanted to get better, and he wanted to be a leader. And now he's the captain of the Bruins, and he's helped them get back on track.
All right, well, Rex, thanks for joining us. It was good seeing you. We appreciate it. We'll get you on down the line. All right.
Gotcha.
I'll be in touch with you. I'll call you.
Sounds great.
Thanks,
awesome.
right. Thanks, Rexy.
Hall of Famer Mark Recchi, 3-time Stanley Cup champion. Join us on the ice, and 2 more with the Pittsburgh Penguins in 16 and 17. off the ice, he's always a great guy to have on, Pierre. Just the way he sees the game. Like I said, that's why I asked him about the management there, because eventually he's going to find his way into a management team somewhere. I think, Pierre, you can just see the way he talks about it, the way he has that passion for it. I think he'll be on a management team sooner or later.
He better be. I can tell you right now, you know how many different hockey people that I talk to and really respect, and he's right at the top of the list. Here's the cool part, though, I can tell you, and I didn't want to embarrass him, but the first time I ever met Mark was on the draft floor in Vancouver in 1990. He was just a kid starting out in Pittsburgh, and Bob Johnson and Craig Patrick wanted him there for our first-round pick. So Mark was actually there when we drafted Jaromir Jagr. They wanted him around. And it was really neat. And so that's the first time I think Mark ever met Jaromir too. So that was kind of cool. But that's the first time I ever met Mark, was the day of the draft in Vancouver. And that's, a native son of BC. And you look at that draft for Pittsburgh, it turned out to be a very important draft. Very important.
Obviously you pride yourself in being a rink rat and just always being around the rink or the game. And, one thing when I started to get to know Mark, I think it was his second turnaround in Pittsburgh, got to know him through Kevin Stevens. And it's just great how much he loves the game. He's constantly around it. Like you said, he watches so much, he studies so much. And it's amazing that passion that's lasted all this time and the way it's kind of transcended through different generations of the game and how he can now pass that on. I think it's great to watch.
Well, that's why I asked him that question when I was working on NBC was, how would you qualify the cups? And obviously the first one means the most because it's in 91. And it was one of those cups where a lot of people didn't think Pittsburgh would win. The 06 one, it was kind of in the middle of his career a little bit, or where a lot of people thought near maybe the end, but I thought it was kind of the middle. But in 2011, that cup was huge. And that's why I thought he would think it was number one, because think about what happened in the first round. They should have lost to the Montreal Canadiens in the first round. And it was Mark and Zdeno and Patrice that got that thing back on the rails. And there was a little trip to Lake Placid, New York, set up by Donnie Del Negro, the former trainer, that got that thing back on the track. And Mark was a big part of that. And he's right. And this is something people don't talk about enough. Game 7 experience matters a lot. Matters a lot. And they played 2 previous Game 7s out of the 3 series they had played before they got there. They had way more experience, way more Game 7 experience.
And I've told you this story. I don't know if I've told it on air too, and I'll never forget it. After they blew that 3-0 series lead the year before to Philly, I was talking to him, and he says, that's going to help us next year. That's what we needed to get over the top. We're going to use that as fuel. And they did. And of course, that was the only series that didn't go 7. They actually swept the Flyers in that rematch in the second round. But just to leave your career with the Stanley Cup in the last game you ever played, it's pretty amazing. I don't know how many players have ever done it.
I don't know.
What the count is, but that's amazing. That really is.
He called a shot. It reminded me a lot of Scotty Bowman in 2002. I know I've shared this before, but I'll share it again for our new people. He called me the day before the deciding game, and he said, I want you to be out front of the hotel. I'm picking you up. And he brought me to the Grosse Pointe Yacht Club. I've never been in a yacht club before, and I've never been in a yacht club since. And he picked me up, and we showed up, and the Commodore was in front of the club in the big hat on. And he said, Mr. Bowman, Mr. McGuire, would you please follow me? And I was like, what are we doing here? And it was a private dining room, and it was big, and it was immaculate, and it was just Scotty and I. And at first, he never talked about anything but just his path in hockey. And I just sat there and listened. And then at the end of the dinner, he said, I just want you to know we're going to win tomorrow. And when we win, I'm going to put my skates on, and I'm going to carry the cup just like the players do, because I've never done that before. And that will be my last time as a coach of a Stanley Cup winning team. And I was like, come on, man. He says, no, I'm telling you. And then he says, you can't tell anybody. And if it comes out, I'm going to be really angry with you. So I'm sitting there for like 17 hours, and I can't say a freaking word to anybody. And I don't. And it's driving me crazy. And at the end, he was so polite. He invited Gordon Miller, Bob McKenzie, and I, who were working together at the time for TSN. We were part of the broadcast. He brought us into his office after, and it was an amazing night at the old Joe Louis Arena with the Stanley Cup right on his desk. Boom. It was pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
It's great stuff. Great stuff. All right. Well, let's get to our wonderful sponsor, Betway, right now. Tell you about them, and I'm going to give you my Murph's pick of the day. No parlays, Pierre. Don't worry.
No parlays for you.
Yeah,
you're off the parlays.
So Betway, you bet the beauties, parentheses, not the parlay if you're Murph, with Betway and join the action. Go all the way with Betway right now and get a free bet if you're a new member, up to $200, even if your first bet loses. Scan the QR code right in front of you there if you're watching, or go to the website and create an account and redeem your welcome offer. The offer is only available for new customers, as I said. Terms and conditions apply. Offer is not available in Ontario right now. You must be 18 plus. Please play responsibly. Let's go to Murph's pick of the day. Here we go.
It's time for Sick Picks. Brought to you by Betway.
All right. So I am looking out to Seattle, where the Seattle Kraken returned from a road trip to face the defending Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers. First game back from the road is always a little tough, Pierre, as you know. So that's why I'm liking the Florida Panthers on the puck line. Give me that. So Florida has to win by 2 if you take that. Take them to win either way. I like them to win over to Seattle Kraken. Plain and simple. No parlays, like I said. Let's get to the Q&A. All right. What do we got? Brad K. Question. The rumor mill in New York has Brady Tkachuk being traded to the Rangers from Ottawa. Are the Sens close enough to a fire sale to make that happen? Brad, this I don't know if you missed it, but the owner of the team, the GM of the team, everybody has denied it out there that there was no talks between them. So I don't see that happening right now. Who knows? Things can change, but I don't know if I'd say they're close to a fire sale, but as we discussed earlier in the show, I do think there's another roster change and an impact roster change coming. Pierre?
Yeah, I think there'll be a roster change as well in Ottawa, but I don't think it'll involve Brady Tkachuk. Yeah, and I never did think it would involve Brady Tkachuk.
No. All right. Next question. Alex Evanowski. What's up, Alex? Do you think the Rangers now need to name a captain? There needs to be some sort of leadership in the dressing room. It feels like the players are begging for it. Well, Pierre, you talked about this yesterday, and you brought up, I forget the team you mentioned that was rotating.
Minnesota.
Yeah. So maybe they do that. And they let it sort of manifest itself, and then maybe at the end of the year, see what worked out best and go from there. I don't know.
Jacques Lemaire did that in Minnesota, where I think it was every month he'd have a different captain. Now, it was usually the same 3 guys, I think. So it'd be, 1 month you're the captain, and the next month another guy. It seemed to work. I mean, look at Jacques was way ahead of his time in so many things.
Up, by the way.
What's that?
I said, I'm glad you brought him up, by the way. I was remiss and I didn't mention it yesterday. Congratulations to Jacques Lemaire. He's going into
the Ring of Honor in New Jersey. Yeah, that's really good. But Jacques did that, and it worked pretty well for his group. I don't know what direction I've been thinking about it. Who do you name? Do you name Kreider, who you probably should have named the first time? Maybe you name Adam Fox. I don't know what they do. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm liking the rotating thing right now and sort of let it develop on its own. All right, next question. Postnet on 130. Habs Ducks game, hits from behind, not called. 1 on Slav, 1 on Gooley. What is the tolerance?
I watched that whole game. It
went a little both ways.
I think there was a little going both ways. Yeah, I didn't have an issue with the officiating in that game. Gooley showed me something, though. He went after Strome pretty hard. Pretty courageous for him. Good for him. I didn't, with all due respect, I didn't think the hitting was out of line. And
I know as fan bases, I know you're passionate, and I know sometimes you can think the refs have it out for you, but for your team, they don't. I mean, sometimes they do have a little grudge against certain players because, they aggravate them a lot. But I mean, in general, that's not going to happen. I mean, these guys are pros for a reason. They're doing the best they can out there, and they're not going to sway it in the favor of one team. I mean, because they'll lose their job. They're trying to, ref to get to the playoffs and get that extra money. So, step back a bit in the heat of the moment there and breathe, and you'll realize if you watch it a little more objectively, they're not swaying towards one team.
No, as Jimmy said correctly, they get evaluated every game, and if they don't do a good enough job in their evaluation or how they're evaluated, they don't get to work in the playoffs, and they make substantial extra money working in the playoffs.
Yep. All right, next question. Randy Workman, how good is Logan Thompson? A
Very
lot
good.
better than I ever thought
Very
he
good.
was. He is.
No, but you didn't know him because you don't stay up past 10 o'clock at night watching games from the West. You're one of those Eastern guys.
Even before
you know I'm joking.
You know that.
I'm joking. He's good. He's very good, and getting better.
Yep.
Getting better. Yeah,
he is.
He's
All right,
good.
next question. Max R, would you have taken Tom Wilson on Team Canada? Yes. He
What
checks
did
and scoring.
Yes, Max.
I was first to say that right here on the eye test a while back when we started talking about the Four Nations. And I think, Pierre, as you said, it's a smaller rink than the international rinks that you played in the Olympics. He just fits the mold of what they need there and would blend in with that roster. Yeah, I'm totally with Pierre.
And he's an elite penalty killer, and he never gets enough credit for that because everybody thinks he's the guy that they have to kill the penalties for. But the guy that really helped them with that was Barry Trotz and Lane Lambert, the two of them actually. They got him to buy in how to kill penalties, and they try to talk him out of taking bad penalties. So those two guys deserve a lot of credit on that. They did a really, really good job with him.
You read my mind on that because I was going to ask you, was there somebody who kind of, I saw it obviously with Brad Marchand here in Boston, the guy we just had on the show, had an influence on him, stop taking the dumb penalties, stop crossing that line, but yet walk the line and still play with that edge. And it was those guys you think that had that effect on him?
Yeah, I think for sure that I was there. I did so many of their games, and I think both Barry and Lane did a real good job with him. And they said, if you don't take penalties, we're going to usually kill him penalties. And they were men of their word, and they did. And it worked out really well for Tommy. And I think let's just say he's playing as a first line right winger right now. Let's say you made Tommy a fourth line right winger, and he had to play 4 shifts a period. Do you know how much energy he would give your team?
I know.
Like instead of playing 8 shifts, just play 4 shifts. You know what I mean? Like he'd give you a lot of energy.
Yeah, that would be something. All right, next question. Steve Lash, what were the expectations for Kyle Davidson and the Blackhawks going into the season? I'm still a bit puzzled about Richardson being let go. The coach is only as good as the roster he has. Completely agree, Steve, and I'm not sure what the expectations were for this team. They're in a rebuild, and just because they've got Connor Bedard, I didn't see them making that much of a jump this year.
First of all, congratulations to Anders Sorensen, who got his first win, first ever Swedish head coach in the NHL to get a win last night. So that's a nice compliment to him. But the fact that he's the head coach chair, I don't think is fair to Luke Richardson. Luke did as good a job as he could do with the roster that he has to work with. It's a very underwhelming roster, especially without Seth Jones. Again, I was surprised. Not enough people talking about where's Seth Jones. Seth Jones is hurt, and he's a big part of their group, but it doesn't get brought up enough. So the one thing I'd say is I don't know what the organizational expectation was in Chicago. Yeah. But Luke Richardson wasn't part of the problem.
No. And Pierre, I maybe Kyle Davidson is, maybe he is. I don't know what the deal is there, but all I'm going to say, and Rex kind of alluded to it earlier, with teams being in rebuilds, you have to, like he's talking about Montreal, when you ask him about that, you have to have the patience and you have to have the conviction. And, you've been part of a situation like that where, you're looking at a rebuild and then all of a sudden ownership says, nope, we're going another way.
Yep.
It's imperative that everyone's on this. If you're going to do a rebuild, you got to do a rebuild. You can't just stop halfway through. You got to see it through, and everybody's got to have that conviction. So I just think, unfortunately, coaches always end up being the unfortunate result of them not having the conviction.
Very, very fair of you. The other part of a rebuild that never gets talked about because people are so protective, you can't overrate your players internally. So when you draft a guy, and you're telling ownership, we drafted Jimmy Murphy, and we think in 2 years he's going to be a first-line center for us. And then after 2 years, you realize Murphy's not going to be that guy. If he's going to play for us, he's going to play in the 4-hole or maybe the 3-hole, or he's going to be a call-up player. You got to get on it, and you got to be very honest about it. And that's hard for a lot of guys to do. I'm not going to take it chapter and verse into everything, but when I was in Ottawa this last go around, there were certain players that, I had strong opinions about, and,
Yeah.
there's some of them are still there.
All right. Next question. State of survival. Is Washington actually good, or is the Metro Division really bad? Washington is good. And,
Washington is good. Hey, look,
and I'm going to own my
Carolina.
mistake. I didn't believe in them. I was wrong.
Yeah, no. Washington's good. Carolina's good. I think the Rangers still could be good. The New Jersey Devils are very good. Philadelphia is a tough out every night. Like, Torts is coaching his derriere off. Torts is doing an amazing job with that. Again, this year, he's coaching his butt off. Mike Sullivan's an elite coach. Carolina's caused a lot of problems for a lot of teams. So no, I think Washington's good. I think the Metro's maybe not as good as, well, it's definitely not as good as the Atlantic. It's definitely not. But it's better than the Pacific. The Pacific's not very good.
Yeah. I would say the Atlantic, and I agree with you on that, but I don't know if the Atlantic's been as good as it can be yet. I think, there's some teams right now.
Well, you're talking about the guys that haven't gone. Like, Ottawa was supposed to be better. Detroit was supposed to be better. Buffalo was supposed to be better. Montreal was supposed to be better. Boston was supposed to be better.
Exactly.
So you're not wrong on that. You're not wrong on that.
We'll see what happens as the season continues. All right, next question. Gabriel Lamb, if Ottawa makes a trade, would it be one of these players, Norris, Chabot, or Giroux? I don't know. I won't speculate on players, but I think besides, obviously, Tkachuk right now, after what happened in the past few days, I think anyone's fair game.
I'm not getting involved with any names. I can just say that Ottawa's got some players in the American League being cultivated by David Bell, who's a tremendous coach down there. So they've got some players being cultivated. They've got some guys they've called up, like Zach Ostapchuk's a really good future player for them. And Shane Pinto, I know people in Ottawa kind of get on because he's not scoring. They need him to get going offensively, but he's going to be a very good player. They got some guys there. Sometimes you just got to shake the tree just to get everybody's attention. I think eventually Steven Staios will figure that out with Dave Poulin, and eventually they'll do something.
All right, next question. Postnet on 130. Lane Hudson is elite for sure. Can he improve on his shot over time? His D should not be understated. Why is Hudson and Matheson playing together in the first pairing? Both offensive defensemen, no safety valve. Pierre?
Well, I think part of why they're playing together is they want to make sure they don't spend a lot of time in their own zone. So one guy can both guys can transport the puck. Matheson is an elite skater, and same with Hudson. But they can also pass their way out of trouble too. So one of the things that does for the Canadiens is it doesn't allow them, the opposition that is, to spend as much time in Montreal's zone. I think in a perfect world, Lane Hudson would have a elite right, big physical defenseman to help him out. Maybe someday that'll be David Savard. Who knows? Maybe it'll be David Reinbacher. I mean, I don't know. For Mike Matheson, he can play. He's a left shot. He can play the right side or the left side because of his skating. So I think the Canadiens are a work in progress. I really do. And let's remember Logan Mailloux. Logan Mailloux is going to be a really, really good player for Montreal. Really good player. So they've got stuff coming. Again, it's the patience factor. Factor.
All right, next question. Alex Ivanowski, what's wrong with Zibanejad? I know he's been a streaky player in his career, but there seems to be a pattern of decline in his play. Is it just age or injury or something else? Alex, good question. I don't have the answer for you, but I would say whenever we're discussing any Rangers play and what may be wrong with them, I think it's part of a bigger picture. I just think it's unavoidable, right now, I just think a lot of players are having trouble being themselves or focusing on the game, as we discussed earlier, because of everything that's going on around the team.
One thing that I always admired about Zibanejad, he demanded the puck. And when he got the puck, he was one of the few players in the league that could really accelerate. Some guys can accelerate. He could really accelerate with the puck because usually the puck is an anchor. It's not a feather. It weighs you down. It slows you down. But for him, he's not doing that anymore. And I don't know if that's because he's hurt. I don't know if that's because he's mentally worn out. I don't know if it's because he's physically worn out. But that he's got to get back to that. He's got to demand the puck. And he's got to accelerate the tempo of the game when he has the puck on his stick.
All right, next question. Brad K, it seems to me that private conversations by Bruins and Rangers management regarding players unfortunately became public. Both teams are underachieving. What effect, if any, does that have on morale? Brad, I'm not aware of any of that. I know maybe there was a report that the Rangers and Senators had conversations, but that was denied. But I'm not aware of any of that.
Well, no, the Rangers definitely had stuff get out. I haven't seen anything from the Bruins that got out. I mean, maybe it did, but I didn't see it. I don't know.
Yeah.
The one thing I'd say is I'd be very careful about reading trade rumors on X, I think it's called now. I've told Jimmy not to call me about that stuff.
Yeah.
It's
there was one about Larkin from the Red Wings the other day, and it was like, what?
Yeah.
It just, yeah. We'll leave it at that. All right, next question. Postnet on 130. Why are the refs not subject to the media after games? Could the post-game evaluations on refs not be published? Good question. Pierre, I'll let you take the answer on this.
So a couple things. One, I do think they should allow the referees in a controlled environment to speak with the media after the game if there are circumstances that need to be explained. That's number one. Number two, I think every official in the league should have their name on the back of their sweater. If the players have to have their names on the back of the sweater, I think the officials need to have their names on the back of the sweater. I don't think it would bother the officials. In fact, I think it might get them some more respect, actually.
Yeah.
Because you know what you see now? There's so many officials in the league because of the two-man system. Teams put up the pictures of the officials and their names underneath them so they know what they look like, because a lot of times some of these coaches, they don't know who these officials are, and that's too bad. But that's where we are right now. And so I think that's all part of it. But the one thing I'd say is it's a really hard sport to officiate in an elite manner. But I think the NHL officials, by and large, the professionalism of the group, doesn't mean they always get it right. The professionalism of the group is pretty outstanding. In fact, it's very outstanding.
And you know what? I mean, it's hard. I know fans don't want to, believe this, but some of these guys have got some great personalities. I mean, you look at Wes McCauley when he has the mic and he comes up to announce, he's great. Let that be seen a little. Maybe it humanizes the refs a little more in the eyes of the fans. I don't know. I think it would help if you knew their names.
So the dirty little secret on Wes was he was a really good Tier 2 junior player. He was drafted by the Detroit Red Wings, and he played at Michigan State, and he was a good player on a real good college team. So Wes McCauley was a good hockey player before he became an NHL official.
Yeah. All right. Last question we got right here. What do we got? A to Z me. Mark, speaking of Mark Recchi, who we just had on, was one of the most consistent hockey players I ever watched play, never took a shift off. Amen to that. Yep.
I would agree. I had the privilege of working with him, and I would agree 100%. He wasn't one of the guys you had to worry about getting prepared. There's only one time I ever saw Coach mad at him, and Mark won't mind if I tell the story. Game 1, 91 finals, Minnesota, Pittsburgh. Mark wore a brand new pair of skates, and I think I know the company that was asking him to wear it, but I don't want to say the company name. And he fell down 2 or 3 times. And we lost the game. We didn't lose because of that. And I remember Bob Johnson saying, "What the heck's going on with Recchi's skates? Get his old skates on." I was like, I'll see him tomorrow. I'll talk to him about it. And then I think I told Mark the next morning. He's like, it didn't cause any problems. And
stuff. Hey, by the way, I saw Shane Oliver over there saying he's in Brandon, Manitoba right now, and it's -38. Anyone up for some shinny? That is good shinny.
Come on, it's Canadian winter. It's like what you got in the summertime there in Brandon that you would look forward to. This is Canada. It's a winter time. Come on.
Yeah. And we had some cold weather, not that cold here in the Northeast. But Pierre, I don't know if you saw the weather report. It's going to be 60 Fahrenheit here tomorrow. Like, this, what the heck is going on?
Yeah, I'll be moving to Canada soon. I miss winter. I love winter.
I hear you, my friend. All right. Well, listen, we want to thank our guest, Mark Recchi, for joining us here on the Eye Test. Thanks to our studio up there, Juliana working the boards for Sick Media, and thanks to you, the viewers and the listeners, and for all your questions. We appreciate it. Up in the air, we'll see what we have. We're trying to get Kevin Shattenkirk for tomorrow. Hopefully we can. Who just retired. Congratulations to him.
We should talk about our guests for Thursday and Friday.
Yes. So Thursday morning, we'll be recording the On-Campus Friday at 10 a.m. So continue to send your questions. I've already got some. for our guest, Ryan Leonard, who again was amazing last night for the Boston College Eagles, and a Capitals pick as well. And then Thursday live at 4:00, we'll have NHL Deputy Commissioner Bill Daly join us here in the Eye Test. So definitely join us for that. But until then, this has been another edition of the Eye Test on the Sick Podcast Network.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Eye Test with Pierre McGuire and Jimmy Murphy on YouTube, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.